Hi guys, welcome back. If you're new to this channel, I want to welcome you too. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. I have lots of content planned from now through the end of the year, and ring the bell to get notified every time new content is released. Today we have Natasha Denona's Triochrome palette. This is brand new and was released today. And by the time you guys see this, it would have been yesterday for you, part of her holiday release. This Triochrome palette, before we get into the color story, I want to show you the packaging itself, how it shifts colors, purple to like a teal blue, and even looks a little gunmetal at certain points. Really cool, I think very thoughtful with this. This is a 15-pan palette, which is in line with how many shades have been in her previous three, I guess, quote-unquote, full-size palettes from this year. However, the pan sizes are larger on this palette. So taking a look at the actual quantity of product on the palette, this palette has 35.4 grams or 1.24 ounces. And when I compare it to the Glam palette, this was released early fall. The total product weight is 19.25 grams or 0.67 ounces. And here's a side-by-side to show you the size difference of the two. And let's take a look inside. This is the Glam palette, and you can see the pan sizes versus, and you'll see the color story too. So much larger pan sizes. Yeah, much bigger. And so there is a price difference between the two as well. The Glam palette and the Bronze palette and the Love palette from the beginning of this year, if you guys recall, all 15 pan but much smaller, and those are $65. This Triochrome here is $129, which is priced same as her large pan palettes from the year prior. And I believe the year prior we had the Gold palette, the Sunset palette. I have the Gold palette and Leela palette. Leela palette was released in 2018. Actually, give me a second here. Let me take out one of those two palettes so I can show you guys. Here's the Gold palette. Those are the pans. Gold palette and Triochrome next to each other. What's different about the packaging of this large 15 pan versus the Gold palette is just different materials. This is a hard plastic, and there is, you know, no plastic with the shade names printed. The shade names are actually printed here, whereas the Gold palette, the shade names are printed here, and the material is more fabric-like. This, I would say, you know, it's still plastic, but it's just softer. Like her other palettes, this is also made in Italy, and you can pop out the shades in the back and rearrange them as you see fit, or take out another palette that has the holes here and just put together your own color story. Let's take a closer look at the color story now that we have introductions out of the way. This palette is called Triochrome, and after looking at it for a couple of seconds, I'm sure you would realize there are 3 Triochromes on the palette. They're just right down the center. Every other shade is a matte shade. I find this color story beautiful. I think it's stunning, and they're all cool tone shades. And I cannot think back to a time or another palette that I have right now has this vibe. Sure, I have lots of cool tone palettes. There are other cool tone, colorful palettes by other brands available, but this kind of pairing and idea, I don't have anything in my collection. I'll talk a bit more about this in my final thoughts after the tutorial for today's look, which I am wearing right now. And let's head on to swatches. Oh, also, the names of the shades, unlike on her Glam palette, are not directional names. They're actually names of different things. And just going by the top row, we have Scrap, Androdite, Scarab, Ion, and Vert. So they all have different names, and for those who may not know, on her Glam palette, all the names printed on here are directional. So going again, the top row, we have center eyelid, outer eyelid, inner corner, crease, and transition. The whole purpose of naming the shades directionally is so that you can follow them, if you wanted to, follow them and just place them on the eye wherever it's named as. And so I wonder if people felt from the Glam palette that was a bit lackluster, so she went back to just having individual names and different names for every single one of them rather than having directional. Although it wouldn't really bother me if on this palette she used directional names, because I don't have a lot of Triochromes and I'm still learning how to play with them and create looks that are eye-popping, different, and also flattering. So yeah, I think extra direction from her I wouldn't mind. But she does, for every palette release, have tutorial videos on Instagram. I believe you can find them on her website and YouTube channel as well. So I'll definitely be looking at that before I create more looks with this palette. Let's get on with the swatches. All right, the shades are very soft. First we have Scrap. Then we have Androdite, followed by the Triochrome Scarab, and it's beautiful. It shifts gold to yellow to green. Then we have Ion, and then Vert. Now, I haven't put these set of shades on my lids, but just from swatching, this Androdite here is a bit patchy, so I'm going to go back in with a second swatch and just see if I could build on it. Okay, looks like this is something you will need to build. And then for Scrap, I'm going to do the same here since it was kind of skipping. And Scrap you can build as well, but these two may require a little bit more work. Let me clean off my fingers and then we'll do the second row. Second row we have Naga, Manganese, Kinetic, this is a Triochrome, and this one shifts between kind of like a light lavender purple to deeper purple and perhaps even a little gray. Then we have Redox. And finally, Tungsten. I would say Naga is a bit chalky, and it does remind me of this Androdite here. Again, I haven't used this road of shades on my lids, so I can't speak to how well it blends on the eye. We're going to do another video where I use these shades to create a look, and I'll give you guys some direct feedback then. But yes, you might have to work a little bit harder, add on a few more applications to really get some impact out of those shades. And for the bottom row, we have Vertex, Plutonium, Color Flip, this is the Triochrome. I think it's really beautiful. This one shifts between like a really deep purple to like a fuchsia, and then it lightens up a bit here, almost like a lilac. And then we have Gammon. Ooh, just do a proper swatch down here. That's a little tough to do it straight over the bubble right here. And then we have Diatonic. Just making it work. Let me do that again. So here is Diatonic. I think this is a beautiful shade. I almost used it on my cheeks today. I'd love to try it another time and just have that on the cheeks. So there you have it. Those are 14, 15 of the shades all from the palette. I would say the matte shades from the bottom row swatched pretty nicely. Vertex, the lightest shade, does look a little bit chalky through the swatch. When I applied it on my lid, and in the bottom row are the shades I used today to create this look. And when I added that shade on my skin, I really didn't notice you know, any skipping or difficulty blending it. Mind you, it's also a shade that kind of blends right into the skin for most people. So it's not like it was obvious what the problem was, if there was any. I will say, of the 4 matte shades on the bottom row, Diatonic was probably the one that required a little bit more work to blend out, but you can see from the swatch here it is fairly smooth. So while it took maybe 10-15 seconds more, I was able to work it, and that is the shade that I have right on my crease. And before we head to the tutorial, let me show you the palette now that I've gone in and touched every single shade. So you can see these pieces here. These are from the shadows, and quite a few of the matte shadows tend to have that happen. So that's just something to be aware of. I don't think cleaning up will be a big deal, but there is chalkiness with some of these shades here, and I think it might possibly affect performance. It might just take, again, a little bit more work, more application to get that intensity if you want more of the shade. Let's head on to the tutorial. I'll give my final initial thoughts on this palette at the end. I'm going to start by putting Vertex onto the lids. We're going to use this color as the base color for today's look. I'm adding Vertex all the way up to the brow bone. Then we're taking Diatonic and we're placing that onto the crease. Then we're taking Plutonium and we're adding that to the middle, to the bottom of the lid, right above the upper lash line. And then I'm going to take a crease brush here that we used earlier for Vertex, and I'm going to buff out Diatonic. So Diatonic and Plutonium could be a little bit more blended. Then we're going to go into Gammon, and I'm placing that onto the outer corners. And just to try it with a brush, I'm going to dip that into Color Flip. This is the Triochrome, one of the 3 on the palette, and I want to see how it adheres and how it glides onto the lid. I'm probably going to go in with my finger to pack some of that shade on, but we'll test it with a brush. And I'm using the clean side of this brush that I dipped for another tutorial into a deeper shade. Now I'm going to go in with my pinky, and we're going to add that pretty. We're going to add that onto the center of the lid. Just see how well this packs on. You definitely get more intensity when you're using a finger. I'm actually going to go back into Plutonium because I want to add that color back right here so we can see it, and actually it's going to help me, or I'm going to use it to help me blend out diatonic a bit better. We're going to add back some plutonium towards the inner corners. Want the shade to be more apparent or present, because adding color flip, the Triochrome has covered some of that mustard yellow color. I'm now going to go in for the cleanup with a Q-tip. Typical Natasha Denona shades, because they're so soft. There is kick up, so I'm going to see how much kick up we got by using a Q-tip and just doing this right below the lash line. And not bad. So this was the first swipe. Really not that much color, so let's see the side. Not that much fallout. Overall, not a lot of fallout, so that is great, always good news. I'm going to put on foundation concealer, then we'll come back and do something fun under the eyes. For under the eyes, we're going to take Gammon, and we're just going like this with a, this is the Sonia G Mini Booster from her Sky Eye set. And we're just going to line the lower lash line. Don't have to be very precise here. Taking a smaller brush, also from Sonia G's Sky Eye set, this is the Flat Definer. We're going to dip it into Color Flip, and we're adding that to the center, right here. Then we're taking Plutonium, and we are buffing this color in right on top of Gammon. Kind of the outer corners and upwards. For blush, I'm going to use Flower Beauty's Pyramids. This is in the color story P2C Peach Glow. And looking at this, there's purple, champagne, rose color, pinks. I just feel like this goes really well with the Triochrome palette, just because it's shimmery and you get a little bit of all the primary shades from this palette. And I feel like if I don't go too heavy-handed, it gives me a good amount of color, but also a lot of shimmer, which fits nicely, I think, into the theme of this palette. So I purposely picked a really big brush so I could get more area coverage with every swipe. For lips, we're going to go with Hermès's Orange Blunt. And I'm going to top that with Tower 28's Juicy Lip Jellies. This is in the shade Fire. This is the finished look. I was a bit surprised to see how soft glam this look is. Definitely the brighter shades does pack a punch, but the Triochrome itself that I've added probably 3 applications on my lid is still fairly soft. You can see the shift as I move, but there isn't quite as much pop, or at least I expected a little bit more. I think true to Natasha Denona's soft glam style, that seems also present for at least this Triochrome that I've used today. We'll have to see what the other ones are like once I get to put them on my lids. We'll save that for another video, but we'll definitely get to all of the shades eventually. And at the beginning of this video, I did mention some of the shadows is flaking after I had gone in with my fingers to do swatches. But when I went in for the demo with a brush, I didn't have these issues. You saw I try to do some cleanup and there really wasn't much that the Q-tip pick up. And the Q-tip is very efficient at picking up powder shadow, and really anything, cream shadow, powder shadow, doing the spot cleanup. There really wasn't much. So I think if you stick with brushes and if you put a finger in a Triochrome, you're not going to have, you know, this kind of mess that I'm seeing. But if you are planning to do swatches just to play around, just be aware that you'll have some cleanup to do. Overall, my initial impressions after I've gotten to create a look with it, touch every single one of the shadows, is I have to say this is a very inspiring color story for me. These are cool tones, but they're bright colors. There are some deep shades here, and it's very cohesive. It's very different from anything that I have and anything I've seen released this fall or possibly even this year. It's just the way this color story is put together, the combination, and Natasha Denona has come out to say she's included 3 Triochromes and lots of matte shades so that we can complete looks with just this palette. In my opinion, because the palette is called Triochrome, and if there were 2 more Triochromes to make up a full row, I think we would be pretty happy with that. I enjoy the colors of these matte shades, but it looks like there is some chalkiness we're gonna run into. And also, while each of these shades appeared, you know, fairly vibrant on my skin tone, I have light to medium skin tone, closer to the medium side because I still have quite a bit of like color from the sun over the summer. They still show up really nicely on me, but when I put them on my lid, I really do have to think about the placement, how I'm blending. If I am not careful, they start to blend into each other and you can't really see. You know, right now, maybe you're not even sure how many different shades I have. Maybe I only have 3. That's including the Triochrome, but I actually use this entire row here. But I feel like once you start blending, these become quite similar, and this shade is easy, at least on my skin tone, to blend away. So I don't think this palette is gonna be up everybody's alley because of the color story and because some of these shades could blend right into with your skin tone. If you like colorful shades and this is something that is very inspiring to you, I would say it is still something very fun to get for the holidays, especially with the current Sephora VIB sales event that they have. I did get 15% off on this. It might even be on special actually on Natasha Denona's website for Black Friday, and any bit of discount really does help. If that's what's going to help you make the decision on the palette, I do think this is something you're going to enjoy. But the only caveat is I wish some of these shades just swatched a bit nicer. It doesn't mean they won't work, but it's just not quality that we're completely used to with Natasha Denona. I think it has to do with how light and how bright these are, and the formula is not quite going to be the same as, you know, her past or deeper matte shades. And I'm looking specifically at Androdite, which looks like a mint green on my skin. I think that color is beautiful. Mint green is actually my preferred accent around the home. And this shade here, which is Naga. And ultimately, I think the final question is, do you need this palette? If you are a Natasha Denona collector, yes. It's very different from what she's released before. Again, the combination. And this year was the first time that she's released any Triochromes, as far as I know. There were the liquid Triochromes or multi-chromes, and then now this powder base. So it is still a new experience from her. If you have other Natasha Denona palettes you've been eyeing, especially recent releases like the Glam palette, the Bronze palette, or the minis like Zendo and Retro and Glam, those were from earlier in the year, I would prioritize those first. I think they're easier to work with. I think the color story is probably a bit more intuitive for most people. If you guys are having a good week, I will see you in the next one. Bye!